Hello, everyone, again. Matthew Janasek. Happy New Year. 2021 is here. I'm sure everything's going to get better. Everything will be different this year. How many of you have seen those memes, or at least you sent a text and said Happy New Year to all your friends and family, and you've read posts that talk about how 2020 is behind us, everything's going to be better now. Does anybody really think that everything is going to be better now? I've had a lot of students, current students, former students, even students all the way back when I started my teaching in Burbank, California in 1998. I've had kids reach out and ask me questions, even as near as yesterday. And that's a cool feeling. And there's a lot of people with a lot of great questions. And by and large, we the people in this country are great people. We have a lot more in common than mass media would make you think we have. Not in common. When your students ask you what's going on out there, here are some of the things that you might be able to say in a way that can help students understand what's going on, intrigue them, get them to ask more questions, do their own research. Because I think often many educators are told to avoid answering questions that are divisive in nature. Let the students work those questions out, we're often told. But very often, kids do not have the depth of complexity of understanding to be able to work some of the most meaningful topics of discussion to understand. So we're caught a little bit. And I'm hoping that maybe some of these questions and some of these current realities and maybe how to address some of them, you can put into practice and keep yourself out of trouble at the same time. This line of reasoning and questioning has always been known as the Socratic method. All educators are taught it. All educators understand it. It is the traditional way of Western classical education, which is question and answers and get to depth. And when you think you have an answer, ask another question. George Carlin, Question Everything, is one of my favorite, connections to this. Another American cultural icon. Question everything. But keep in mind, when you do question things, like Socrates did all the way to the bitter end, he was assassinated. People that do ask big, important questions sometimes do so at great risk to themselves. So, how do we balance all of that out? Do we want our students and do we want citizens that are capable of high-level critical thinking and making judgments of value nature that are very important? We do. There's a growing fear that asking someone to think critically could actually mean you're trying to persuade them to believe something. This is the quandary many American educators find themselves in, especially in teaching the social sciences. Asking a complex question to somebody who's already made up their ideological mind on a topic or issue generally runs the risk of conflict and offense. And since our culture has become so offensive-driven, robust, depth-filled, difficult discussion becomes harder to engage in when there isn't trust. So, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I like to address this at the beginning of the school year. Show a scene from Return of the Jedi where Obi-Wan Kenobi was explaining to Luke why he lied to him about Vader not being his father. And Obi-Wan's line back to Luke is, Luke, what I told you was true from a certain point of view. And he went on to say, you're going to find that most of the truths that we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view. And I've tried to use that as a metaphor with my students in the pursuit of truth, in the pursuit of historical knowledge, and what we can glean from it. We must understand points of view. We must understand that times change. Some things change, some things stay the same. To become a depth-filled critical thinker, we need to approach learning and the pursuit of truth in an objective way. I don't know. Hopefully that makes a little sense. And how are all of us doing in our own personal pursuits of truth over the last month? Since a month ago, when I put my last few questions out there, none of the questions have been answered. None. And they're still not answered. I'm told that we may get answers by Wednesday to some of my questions. But we were also told that we'd have lots of answers by now. And we don't have any. How much do we really know? If you're honest with yourself, it isn't as much as we had hoped. And there is historical evidence to back that claim. Ever since 1947 and the passage of the National Security Act that created the CIA and the NSA and the Joint Chiefs of Staff and created the permanent military surveillance security apparatus of the Cold War and beyond, that has been how the United States has kept information from the citizens. That's us. And we, the people, in short, for good reason, probably a few in there, but at what cost? The good reason they may keep information from the citizens, that could be questions of nuclear technology and advanced technologies that could put everybody in peril. That's a plausible reality. And we may find out more about that. But you cannot dispute the fact that ever since 1947, the American citizen should all be aware that we do not have all of the information. And yet we're expected to make, very important judgment calls as citizens on the trajectory and direction of our nation. So, and even at the, what was that, the commission in 1975, I believe it was, that investigated the CIA then, and the report stated that the CIA was lying and has been lying to the American people. It was a church commission, I think it was. So people that know are really humbled because most of the citizens that are aware that they don't know are actually humbled in jumping to conclusions. So we know we're not trusted by the government, yet we can also be asked to die for it. That relationship has really flipped in American history relatively recently, since the end of World War II in general, when the security of the citizens the government took on from an international, ongoing, permanent threat in the Soviet Union and communism. Okay, that threat, when it went away, was essentially replaced by a war on terror, so there's been that. And that, my friends, never ends. A war on terror will never end. Hence the permanent military state that can surveil you 24/7, 365 will also never end, unless the people demand that it does. So, the relationship that has flipped that the government needs to protect us is being rekindled toward awakening that we, the people, need to be the stewards and guardians of our own liberty and our own rights. And the revelations and the taxing of COVID impact, of shutdown impact on the American economic system has been part of that awakening of consciousness as well. And try to balance out what are scientific claims? How do we know that they're true? What is one side saying and what is the other side saying? What are they allowed to say and what are they not allowed to say? What are the roles of international players, other nation states, or international organizations such as the UN or the WTO? There are many layers that need to be considered when explaining answers to very good questions that all citizens probably have. They just might not know how to ask it. And I'm positive right now, Democrat or Republican, doesn't matter. If most people were surveyed, do you trust the government? Most of the survey respondents will come back, no. Can a republic long endure if its citizens don't even believe in it anymore? And these abuses of power that we are talking about, or the seeming tolerance of abuse of power at the highest level, that doesn't know a Democrat-Republican Party. This is not a political exercise. Profiles in Corruption by, I forget my great author's name there, New York Times journalist. Maybe it'll come to me later, but Profiles in Corruption. This is not a partisan issue. This is a corruption issue. This is a money issue. This is a lobbyist power and zero accountability at the highest level for influence. Big tech, the largest contributors to most campaigns. For me personally, one of the things I may say is I am a little skeptical of the impact that big tech has on the narrative of the citizenry. What are we talking about? And it's clear that big tech has influenced that debate. Okay, and if anybody is unaware of that, then they're just not paying attention. And censorship is happening. And politically speaking, though, it seems to be happening more from the left side of the traditional political spectrum toward the right. But censorship doesn't need to know a party or a ideology. It shouldn't happen. But it is happening more and more. Okay. Who told us all of this? Edward Snowden, Julian Assange. We haven't had any pardons yet. On the two probably most influential truth tellers of this modern era. One is in exile from the United States, and the other is being held by the United States.